All right, so we're here. I'm Dr. Jeff, and this is my fiance, Maureen. And tell them a little bit about yourself real quick, what your background is.
My background is in education. I've been an elementary school teacher for 15 years and recently transitioned to higher education teaching at the college level. So I don't really have, is this where you get at? I don't really have a background in nutrition or anything health related, anything.
Yep, but you make all the meals, you make all the food that we eat. I've struggled with weight over the course of my life. When I was younger, I was on asthma medication and steroids, so I was very inflamed and developed poor eating habits. And I fluctuated between 50, 60 pounds at times. And this time, with Maureen feeding me, I've stuck around about 200 pounds. So I've dropped about 60 and stayed off. And what we're going to talk about today is the Plant Paradox here, which is Dr. Gundry's first book. We did a podcast that had his yes list, because he has a yes-no list, and we'll have the link in the comments below. And then his second book here, if you guys want, is the Longevity Paradox. But we've got the no list right here, right? So we're going to go over the no's, why they're no's, and then give you some examples of foods that you can replace these no's with that are just as good, right?
So just to back up to sort of my background, even though it's in education, I've taken a real interest in this plant-based lifestyle, and then when the Longevity Paradox came out, kind of adding to my knowledge. So even though I don't have that background in health and wellness or nutrition, I've done a ton of reading and a lot of learning on my own, so that we've been able to feed ourselves and feed our family in a way that we know is the most
and we
healthy
see the
way.
Yeah, we see the results in the kids too. So to put it in perspective, every night that I'm up watching a game or watching something mindless on TV, she's online looking up recipes and stuff like that, which I don't know how you do it, but you do it. All right, so let's look at some of these no-list things. So a lot of these no-list things have lectins in them, and lectins I'll describe in a minute as to what they are, but let's give you a few examples of some of these no-list foods. So we've got the refined starchy foods. We've got pasta, rice, potatoes, potato chips, milk, bread, tortillas, pastries, cookies, crackers, cereals, sugar, agave, Splenda, Sweet and Low, diet drinks, even some vegetables such as tomatoes, cucumbers, peas, soy protein. So the biggie with these is they contain lectins, and what lectins are is they're plant protein, and these plant proteins are highly toxic to insects, but minorly toxic to us. But over time, with our food habits having high levels of these foods, right? So, I mean, if you look at something like rice or potatoes, just meat and potatoes and sugary drinks is a very common way of eating for the average American. So we might not be as small as insects, but when we're eating these lectins all day long every day, they do lead to digestive issues in us, and we should try to limit them as much as possible. So a lectin, like I said, is toxic to insects, and when we eat it in abundance, it becomes toxic as well to us. A perfect example of this evolutionary process of these foods is that animals that eat colorful foods have color vision. Animals that don't eat those foods don't have color vision. So when these plants that have been developing realize that they need to get into the digestive system of particular types of animals to ensure their survival and have them flourish, over time they've realized that we are attracted to colorful things. So if they produce more color, then we'll be attracted to them. So that's a simple example as to that. What's interesting is that I just thought of this, but the fact that all of these foods here have no color to them for the most part,
right?
That's pretty interesting.
But remember that time I sent you that picture of all the crackers?
Yes.
in the grocery store, red, yellow.
Oh yes,
they were
yes,
all
yes.
of those.
So if you look at the cracker boxes and all of these grain boxes at the supermarket, they all have bright red, yellow colors. They all have these bright colors that we are attracted to.
Yep.
Let's look at some of these no lists here. So we've got pasta, rice, potatoes. What do you have for alternatives?
For alternatives, pasta, we've been doing a lot of there's a brand called Palmini, and they make the hearts of palm, which they sort of put into like a noodle shape. So remember we had that with spaghetti and meatballs.
Yeah.
So that's a good alternative that you can get on Amazon or at Walmart actually. Rice, you can do some rice. We eat a lot of cauliflower rice.
Yep, so cauliflower rice is great. We have that in everything. We don't even notice the difference anymore.
But if you are looking for that, it really comes down to the texture.
Yep.
If you're looking for that real texture of rice, you can, in phase 3, have basmati rice, pressure cooked.
Basmati pressure cooked rice.
Yep.
So pressure cooking, a pressure cooker is one of the best tools to impact these lectins in these foods. So we'll go over this no list, but you can take the majority, right? The majority of these foods and throw them in a pressure cooker, and it kind of takes it kills off the lectins. Correct?
Because of the high heat.
Because of the high heat does that. All right, so potatoes.
Sweet potatoes.
Yeah, the sweet potatoes are actually, I know some people, typically people in their late 50s to the baby boomer generation, they really love their white potatoes. They love mashed potatoes, white potatoes. It's very hard to get that generation I found in the office to transition to a sweet potato, but they really are. I mean, if you prep them right, they really, they taste better. They've got more taste to them than a white potato. So try sneaking those in.
We use those for everything, and you can get, they have purple sweet potatoes, traditional orange sweet potatoes, and then those white sweet potatoes, which are even a little bit sweeter, which are really good. Sneak
in the white sweet potatoes, because a lot of the baby boomer generation, they are big into they visually are used to the types of foods. That's a big thing with that generation I found, is that some generations will be into the taste or the texture. This baby boomer generation is very big into color. I mean, you got to remember too that this generation grew up during the margarine butter phase, where they were really trying to phase out butters and use margarines instead. And one of the marketing ploys that they used for margarine was actually they put yellow food coloring in the package that you bought so that you could take it home and stir it up and make it look orange, right? Like, that's how big that generation is to the visual appearance of food. All right. Potato chips, that's a great snack food, but I love sweet potato chips.
Yes, you do.
Sweet potato chips I eat all the time. Sweet potato chips are awesome.
They're good.
What types of brands of sweet potato chips do you have?
Jackson's Honest is probably the best. You can also get root vegetable chips, the Terra brand. You have to check the ingredients because not all of them are cooked with the same oil. But as long as it's cooked with coconut oil or olive oil or avocado oil, you're good to go. We eat beet chips.
Oh yeah, beet chips are good.
There's a brand of tortilla chips that we can eat, the Siet brand.
Yep.
Of those. We have lots of options. Those puffs are good.
Yep. What are the puffs made out of?
The puffs are cassava flour.
Cassava flour. So cassava flour is a yes list. It's a root vegetable, and it is it's a non-lectin containing food, right? Yep. So we've got milk. Milk nowadays is so industrialized that the cows have developed a genetic mutation so that they have a Casein A1 gene in their milk, right? And that is inflammatory to us. So you're gonna see, and I just saw a commercial for it yesterday on basic cable, but there was a commercial for, what's the brand that you have?
It's just called A2.
It's just called A2 milk. There's actually a commercial on basic cable for Casein A2 milk, and you'll see a big push from a lot of these milk manufacturers now to label their milk as Casein A2 because it's picking up a lot of traction, and you can use that.
Because those are the European cows.
They're the European cows without that genetic mutation. It's the other reason why goat's cheese and goat's milk are good and able to be eaten via the yes/no list because they have not had that genetic mutation that the Americanized cows have developed. All right? All right, so tortillas.
Oh, tortillas.
Where do you get your tortillas from?
Well, I buy some, but I also make those sweet potato ones.
She makes sweet potato tortillas.
Sweet potato tortillas, which are awesome. And then that same brand, the Siete brand.
How do you spell it?
Siete. You can get it at Whole Foods.
Cool.
They're completely grain-free tortillas. I always have those in the freezer.
Mm-hmm.
You can make cassava flour tortillas. Lots of options for those.
Nice. Anything else on this refined starchy foods?
Cereal, that tends to be a big one with the kids.
Yep.
So there is a puffed millet cereal that you can buy
Yep.
with the kids. So millet is one of those ancient grains that is compliant, and you can buy, they kind of look like Rice Krispies, but
Yeah.
obviously a better version, and throw some puffed millet in there, a little bit of fruit. Sometimes for the kids, we'll put a little honey on there with some A2 milk or goat's milk. Got a perfect bowl of cereal.
Perfect. All right. Any of these sweeteners?
Sweeteners, you can use the stevia as a sweetener.
Yeah.
That's what we tend to use.
Mainly with these artificial sweeteners, they trick our brains into, when we taste sweet, our body is expecting that sugar dump into our body, so it secretes particular types of hormones and impacts us hormonally, but then that sugar isn't there inside the system for real, so our body starts craving more and more, right? So it's the body's asking for the sweet, you're tricking it and telling it that you're getting it, then it's not getting it, and the body starts to crave it more and more and more and more because it's never accessing hormonally those changes that it's looking for. Okay?
And we talked on that first podcast on the Yes List about the monk
Yes,
fruit, the swerve.
Monk fruit, swerve, those are great replacement sugars.
Yeah.
All right, so these vegetables,
Yes.
these tomatoes, cucumbers, sugar snap peas, legumes, green beans, chickpeas, soy, tofu, edamame, all beans, including sprouts. And this is the biggest change and difference in what Dr. Gundry recommends as opposed to like every other health conscious nutrition plan that you'll probably find. I mean, most nutritional plans all have the grains and dairy and sugar all in common in terms of reducing those and improving your health. But reducing these vegetables, these tomatoes, cucumbers, those types, have shown significant improvement with me. Every time that I've improved my health nutritionally, I've still continued to eat tomatoes and cucumbers and the sugar snap peas. Like, those are biggies that I feel like I used to always throw into my salads. Like, okay, I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to have salads. I got to go out and get my tomatoes. I got to get my cucumbers. I got to throw all that garbage in there. And believe it or not, since they've been gone, I haven't really noticed it. And the reason that these contain lectins is because they on the skin in the seed of these foods, they contain lectins. So what you can do is you can actually de-skin them and de-seed them, right? So believe it or not, you sit there and think, okay, tomatoes, Italians are relatively very healthy in general with their nutritional health, but they have a ton of tomatoes, right? But if you go over there and you ask them how they prepare their tomatoes, every single one of the tomatoes that they utilize is de-skinned and de-seeded. So they're never ingesting any of the skin or seeds of these fruit. I mean, of these, what we would consider fruit.
Yeah.
So what Maureen does for preparation is, how do you prepare the cucumbers?
The cucumbers, I peel those.
Yep.
peel them and then scoop out the seeds and dice them up for the boys for lunch.
Yep.
You and I tend to not eat those.
Yeah, we don't eat them much, but the boys do.
The boys do.
What
And
about-
then for the tomatoes, I don't take the time to peel and de-seed tomatoes, but there's a brand, the Palmy brand, which will it comes in either a can or one of those cardboard containers. So it's diced tomatoes. They make a tomato sauce, tomato paste. All of theirs are already peeled and de-seeded.
What's the brand?
Palmy, P-O-M-I.
P-O-M-I.
So if you're looking to add diced tomatoes to a recipe or a soup or chili, if you were going to make a tomato-based chili, that's a great alternative.
Okay. All right, cool. Peas. This peas is another baby boomer one, right? Like
Yep.
peas and corn are biggie in that generation. I mean, they were raised to eat that way. I was raised to eat that way when I was younger. But what do you use instead of the peas?
Don't really replace the peas.
Yeah, we don't even really replace the peas. So
I've never been a big pea fan.
me neither. But what are some things that, like a baby boomer you could throw on their plate to kind of satisfy their peas? To be honest, I feel like peas are just kind of like someone's way of saying, at least I'm eating some vegetables.
Right.
Right? So it's
Right.
like, I mean, peas should be the least of their worries. Right?
Yeah, I don't really have a
Yeah.
decent
So
replacement for that.
to me, the peas and the sugar snap peas seem to be like the last ditch effort to try to be healthy, right? From
Yep.
someone that's trying to eat vegetables. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you like them, but I don't really like them. So if you could just get them out and just replace them with some of the yes list stuff instead, and not be so hard on yourself about trying to eat healthy, and you should be good. All right. Soy. The vegetarians are going to love this.
Soy.
Yeah, so soy contains lectins, and it's actually inflammatory to us. A lot of these vegetables, like the grains and stuff, they are so mass-produced now, right? That not only do they contain lectins in the first place, but they're so mass-produced now that it's an industrialized food source now. So we should try to eat more locally grown, natural stuff, which is why we stay away from the soy. What do you have for any sort of soy replacement?
For us, we never really ate a lot of soy, but if we were going to use soy sauce in a recipe,
Yep.
or like when we go out,
Yeah, for
and
sushi.
occasionally get sushi, you could replace it with coconut aminos, which is essentially the sap from a coconut tree.
Yep.
I can never really tell the difference between that and soy sauce.
Yep. So the coconut aminos are great. I really like them.
Yep, and they do come in those nice little travel
Yeah,
packs.
they come in like ketchup pack type deals, so they're good.
So we bring those with us. The other thing about soy too is that some soy products are allowed if it's fermented, because that
Okay.
fermentation process kills off the lectins.
Yep. So
So like
ferment.
a miso paste, miso soup,
Those are all good.
they're soy based, but because they're fermented. yes.
Cool. Awesome. All right. All beans, including sprouts.
So that's where it gets interesting. If you're strictly following the plant paradox,
Yeah.
then all beans are out unless that's one of those things, one of those food items that could be pressure cooked. So you can soak them, you can pressure cook them, and you can eat your beans in moderation on the plant paradox as like a phase 3. So phase 3 being if you
Yep.
don't have any chronic digestive issues, if you don't have any inflammation, essentially if your gut is healed,
Yep.
you can introduce certain foods back in. In the longevity paradox, though,
Which is his second book.
which is the second book, sort of a follow-up to the plant paradox,
Yep.
but where Dr. Gundry really researched those blue zones and how, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say that with the Blue Zones is a separate book. There's this National Geographic guy, and he went around and found all these areas where people are living well into their hundreds and healthy and active. And some of these Blue Zones don't eat like this plant paradox, but Dr. Gundry, while he recommends this, he realizes that these people are living healthy and they haven't been eating specifically like this, even though primarily they are. So for some of these places, like in Okinawa, Japan, they eat primarily all sweet potatoes. Now, sweet potatoes, in terms of Gundry's recommendations, eat them, but not entirely everything. But so there's other areas that they eat a ton of beans, right? So a part of me wonders, since beans grow in the soil, how much really matters with these beans, and this is all just me thinking, but how much of these beans growing in good nutrient-rich soils actually impacts how the humans that live around there digest them, right? Because, I mean, if you go out to the supermarket and you buy canned beans and all that, I mean, a lot of these things, in America at least, are industrialized, right? And they're just grown fast in really crappy soil with chemical fertilizers and all that. And a lot of these blue zones are in more nature-rich areas where people are farming them on their own. You've got soil that is filled with nitrogen and all the ingredients in the soil that's needed to flourish this good, healthy bean. Then you eat that, and then the fertilizers put down, probably from the animals that are eating some of the areas around it. So it's a lot more of a like circle of life type of situation. But we do have beans and stuff. So
if we tend to do sort of I would say a hybrid of the plant paradox and the human paradox.
Yes.
So we do on occasion eat some beans.
Yep.
And they are, although they're a pretty strict no for phases 1 and 2 in the plant paradox, for the longevity paradox, they are a compliant food.
Yep. And we've maintained our health and weight when we implement them. One of the key things to realize with the longevity paradox, like we said, and some of these things we're talking about in the no list, is that the overall goal of these changes and modifications in the way that you eat is to heal your digestive system, to heal your gut. So by then introducing particular foods after the gut is already healed means that you're better off and more capable of digesting them, right? So if your digestive system is horrible right now, and you just say, okay, well, Dr. Jeff and Maureen said beans are fine, and you eat the beans, you may not notice any improvement. But if you healed the gut by reducing the beans, by reducing these lectins for a couple weeks, and then reintroduce them, you're going to notice a big difference.
And you have to, when you reintroduce those foods, you really have to pay attention to.
Yeah, you pay attention to your own personal experience with them.
Yep.
All right, nuts and seeds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, chia seeds, peanuts and cashews, all no's.
Yep.
Not my peanuts!
Peanuts and cashews, man. We were big cashew eaters.
I know. I was handfuls of cashews. Not a huge pumpkin seed guy, but peanuts and cashews.
And I think the thing with pumpkin is all of those sort of, in the fall, those pumpkin flavored things. Pumpkin muffins, pumpkin pancakes, pumpkin everything.
It's a squash.
It's a squash. And it is most of those pumpkin recipes are very easily replaced with sweet potato.
Oh.
So you can buy...
Really? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
No, they do taste pumpkin-y.
So all of you can buy canned pureed sweet potatoes.
Yep.
We make pumpkin pancakes out of those, pumpkin muffins. Pumpkin pie spice is compliant because it's really just cinnamon, cloves,
Yeah, we
nutmeg.
do have a ton of pumpkin.
Yeah.
Now that you say it.
You would never know.
Yeah, you would never know.
It's sweet potato.
So the pumpkin seed is just like we were saying before with the cucumber or the squash, right? Those that have seeds inside and then that textured outside contain lectins on the skin and the seeds, which is essentially the pumpkin seed.
Yep.
All right, so peanuts, they are legumes, not nuts. They are highly inflammatory.
Yep.
Just look at the fact that I could go off on a whole tangent of how we do need to become more comfortable around peanuts because the peanut nut allergies these days is crazy. But just the fact that someone can go into anaphylactic shock by eating a peanut tells you how systemically inflammatory they are to everyone. I mean, just because one person has anaphylactic shock doesn't mean that everyone isn't impacted on lesser levels. So there's lesser cellular levels of this inflammation that takes place that we may not even notice. So peanuts are a big no-no. I've stayed away from those. Geez, I mean, I haven't had milk or peanuts since I learned about anti-inflammatory nutritional plans in chiropractic school 12 years ago.
Yeah.
I haven't had any of it, and that was based off of research studies back then around the Mediterranean diet and stuff like that. And cashews. Cashews are newer. I used to replace my peanut love for cashews.
They are good.
But cashews, I mean, cashews contain lectins.
Yep. And we've easily replaced those with different types of nuts.
Yeah, different types of nuts.
Which we talked about,
Yep.
sort of putting some oil and seasoning on it. And
Yep.
I've noticed personally, by cutting cashews out of the sort of nut equation, a huge difference in terms of how I feel after I eat
really?
nuts. Yeah.
Oh, you haven't said that before.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Breaking
awesome.
news.
Yeah, that's breaking news. Oh. Do you feel a lot better after no cashews?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, much less inflamed.
Alrighty. On to fruits and veggies.
All
So,
the no-nos.
all fruits except in-season fruits. So let's start with that, then we'll get into the rest. So all fruits except for in-season fruits. So, like I was saying at the beginning of this, animals that like fruits in season all have color vision. Or a better way to say it is that all animals that have color vision prefer fruits in season. That's when they're healthiest, right? Because that's when the fruit is actually telling us, hey, look at me.
Yeah.
I was going to go off a little bit. So you can be pooped out and I can grow again. But these fruits should be eaten then. And believe it or not, a lot of these out-of-season fruit, or these out-of-season fruits that we see in grocery stores, are just infused. They have special rooms that they pump gas into to ripen them or de-ripen them. They put them in a big container, and it's filled with that gas. It keeps them unripe. They bring them into the grocery store. They spray the gas on them, and all of a sudden they're yellow. The bananas are yellow, right? So, I mean, you can see this by when you pick up some bananas, like especially the ones at gas stations, and you open up, you know, you get a gas station banana and you unpeel that thing, and it's rock solid, like it's unripe, but yet it's yellow, which is mind-boggler.
Yes.
But yes, that is a perfect example of the gas situation. And then just looking around here, we're local to New England, but the difference between an apple in season off a tree compared to an apple, like I lived down in Florida for a bit, like when you were in Kentucky, did you ever eat apples or anything? Do you remember what they tasted like? No?
They tasted like the apples you would buy in the winter.
Yeah, they taste like cardboard, kind of like
And
a
they're, like,
styrofoamy,
mealy,
yeah,
mushy.
yeah, like a styrofoaminess to it, or a real mushiness to it. So big difference.
And I would just say, in terms of the fruit, that was one of the hardest.
Fruit was
when we
hard.
started this.
Yes.
That was one of the hardest changes that I had to make. But since we've started to eat fruit more in season, you really come to appreciate the taste of it.
Yeah, way
so
better.
I just happened to eat a strawberry the other day.
Oh, strawberries in season, way different.
Amazing.
Way different.
They taste so much better.
Yep.
But if you're used to eating them all year, you don't have that same. It becomes a treat.
I agree. Yeah, and that's why one of the biggest things that stuck with me in reading his book was just the simple line that he said, think of fruit like candy.
Mm-hmm.
Because whenever I think of having a sweet, when I was being healthy, I'd say I can't have that sweet, but I can have a banana,
right,
or I can have a fruit. I can have something to curb that sugar craving. And once I got rid of that, I started looking for other things to fill that void, and there are healthier alternatives. And then before you know it, once you reach those healthier alternatives, the curbing of that sweet tooth is way easier.
Yeah.
Right? So ripe bananas.
Ripe bananas, yep.
So
those are a no-no.
Ripe bananas have so much sugar content in them that you'd like to stay away from them anyways. But like plantains and unripened bananas, right, which is kind of backwards from the seasonal ripe fruits and stuff like that. But the bananas, the unripe bananas are actually good to use.
There's
some plantain chips that are really, really good.
Oh, that's what we've got saved.
Yeah, plantain chips are awesome. All right, we've got here zucchinis. That's essentially the same thing as right here. Zucchini, pumpkin squashes, melons, eggplants, bell peppers, chili peppers. Those are all similar to the tomatoes and the squashes we said before. The bell peppers and the chili peppers, those are all unseeded or de-seeded and peeled.
Those are, yeah.
Same idea as the tomato, right? So
yep.
all of these foods that have like those loose seeds inside, right? They aren't really the like a fruit seed, but yet have like the peppers are hanging out inside,
yeah.
or the squashes there inside. Like those stay away from. All right.
In the fruits and veggies, I think we covered.
Okay, so it says right here, non-Southern European cow's milk products, right? So all no, right? All knows, and that is because, like we had said before, these non-European cows, right? These non-Southern European cows all have Casein A1 genetic mutations. So we've got the yogurts, the Greek yogurts, the frozen yogurts, the American cheese, ricotta, cottage cheese, kefir, casein protein powders. Casein protein powder, I mean, I got into that when I was playing sports and lifting, and casein is so highly inflammatory, I can't believe I ever took it. It's touted as a slow-acting protein, so it's good for weightlifters and stuff. You can just do without it. It's unnecessary. And then the biggest, like, the biggest trick the world has played on us is that Greek yogurt is healthy.
I was just going to say, yeah, that's one of those ones that I feel like since
ridiculous.
I've stopped, I always ate it as a healthy option.
Yeah, the marketing for like Chobani yogurt and all that is so good. They got me thinking that it was so healthy for me.
But that's another thing, since I eliminated it from my diet, I've noticed a huge change.
Really?
Yeah.
That and the cashews.
Yeah.
Biggest difference.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, even prior to reading Gundry's book, when we were in school, staying away from the yogurts was key.
Yeah.
Such high sugar, and then lactose in general, which is from dairy, that instantly converts to sugar inside your system. So if it's not candy, then it's milk or dairy, and then the same with grains too. But
there's good news in the cheese department, even though a lot of those sort of traditional cheeses.
Tell us some about them, Maureen.
Tell you about the cheeses.
Tell us about the cheeses.
The cheeses?
Cheeses.
Any sort of goat's milk cheese.
Goat's cheese.
Goat cheese. Anything made out of sheep's milk. So
sheep's milk.
You can find sheep's milk ricotta, feta. Again, you really have to read those labels though, because you can find feta, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's from. It'll be more sort of commercialized or industrialized. Okay. You have to check to make sure it says sheep's milk. We eat a ton, or when we eat cheese, manchego, any of those European cheeses. What else? Pecorino Romano. All good options.
You're the cheese finder.
I do. I love. They have to be from
cheese.
France, Switzerland. I'm gonna have to look that one up.
All right.
There's 3 countries. I can't remember what they are.
The last 2 pieces on this is, I mean, we've got the sprouted grains, the pseudo grains and grasses. These are all no's, which is the whole grains, the wheat, the oats, the quinoa, the rye, the brown rice, the white rice, the barley, the cashew, corn products, corn starch, corn syrup, popcorn, wheatgrass, barley grass. So, whole grains, believe it or not, the outer layering of the grain contains lectins. So, whole grains contain lectins, while white grains contain less. It's backwards. It's from what we've learned. And this is why it's so important to maintain a lifelong learner approach with nutrition, because something we learned today in that video that we put out here today, we may find out new stuff, or like the science world may find out new stuff 10, 15 years from now. Information is limitless now, so we're finding new research studies, and then bouncing them off of other peer-reviewed studies, finding out all sorts of stuff about nutrition. So it may change in 10, 15 years, and then we'll make the appropriate changes to our lifestyle. But right now we're seeing huge improvement with staying away from whole grains, and it's been great. Corn is in everything now, so if you don't stay away from it because of just the lectin aspect of it, the fact that all of the blue zone areas or all of these healthy longevity areas have a varied diet. They're eating a bunch of different things, and there's some research showing that the diversity in your diet plays a huge role in your health over the long term. Just the fact that corn is in something, it's something crazy percentage-wise, that it's in just about everything that we eat.
Yep.
Just about everything that the average American eats. So there is no diversity in that aspect. So you've got to limit your corn to a degree, because you're just by happenstance going to encounter corn. So why the heck should you add it to your meals and other things that you're eating, right?
And that gets tricky too, sort of when you get into the gluten-free aspect of things. You know, everybody's on this gluten-free bandwagon because it's healthier, but a lot of those products have, even though they're gluten-free, they have the brown rice flour, they have corn flour, corn syrup. They're very much based on those.
I mean, I drove through Dunkin' Donuts the other day for coffee, and there were gluten-free brownies that they were selling. So everyone's on this gluten-free craze right now, and when you see Dunkin' Donuts selling gluten-free brownies, then you know that some big players have gotten a hold of this gluten-free stuff, and they're going to find anything that doesn't contain gluten, and they are going to try to push it to you. Just like the fat-free craze was huge, you could have taken an apple and thrown a fat-free sticker on it, and people would have bought it over a regular apple.
Probably.
No questions asked.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens with gluten. Find the enemy, and then tell everyone that you don't have it in them. All right, so now the oils. Soy oil, we already touched on soy. Rapeseed, corn oil, peanut oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, partially hydrogenated vegetable or canola oil. These oils are all highly, highly inflammatory, whether we look at them from a lectin standpoint or not. They just have high omega-6 fatty acids when we have such an astronomically high level of, kind of like the corn, right? So we're eating an abundance of these omega-6 fatty acids on a regular basis. They're in the majority of stuff you find out there that's not cooked for you. So at all times, you should try to be limiting those and increasing your omega-3 fatty acids, which you hear are in the fish oil supplements and eating in fish and in the olive oil, right? So something as simple as changing your oil that you cook with can have significant health benefits. So you have changed to olive oil with everything, right?
Olive oil or avocado. I never really used any of those oils to begin with, but I think we made a conscious effort to make sure they're not in the ingredients of
other things.
And they'll sneak those ingredients into a healthy looking.
Yeah, what have you found them snuck in?
Even some of the compliant like brands of chips that we eat, like those Terra.
Oh yeah.
Right? So we eat those Terra brand green plantain chips, which are just green plantains and coconut oil. But if you look at their root vegetable chips, they're made with sunflower oil, or a combination of sunflower and canola oil. So you really have to read the ingredients carefully.
It's cheaper. A lot of these things, it's cheaper for these companies to produce their product with that type of oil than, say, olive oil. And in the big picture, eating something with olive oil may not be more expensive for us to purchase, but it's harder for these big companies to produce it all. So, like, when you start seeing stuff popping up everywhere, right, it's kind of like if you're building a product and you need to hit a larger market, you start building it over in China, right, because labor's cheaper over there. So when you start making a product that is good to eat, and you start making it with olive oil, and then all of a sudden we're like, all right, we got to hit market baskets, we got to hit the grocery stores, we've got to hit the gas stations, all that. Of course they're going to sacrifice the olive oil for corn oil or vegetable oil because it's more cost effective for them on a larger scale.
Yep. So read your
ingredients
read your labels.
and be skeptical of the healthy foods that seem to be everywhere.
Yep.
Right? You should really check out your labels, and then once you start seeing it pop up everywhere, make sure you double check it again to see if anything's changed.
That does happen.
Because they do that. And I mean, you can't really blame them. They're trying to hit a new market, and we've shown them with our bad food habits that we'll eat it anyway. So, I mean, the oils are a very little sneaky thing that they can impact to save money.
Yep.
All right. Is that it? That's really
That's it.
Okay, if you guys like this, subscribe below. Make sure to leave comments because we want to do more things like this with you guys. And give us an idea as to, I know in the office you guys bring up things that you find value in, and a couple of you guys, not a couple, a good portion of you guys said that you'd find this type of information valuable, so let us know in the office and in the comments. Thanks.
So if you liked what we just talked about and are interested in learning more about how to prepare meals with these compliant ingredients and convert some of those no food items into more compliant recipes, be sure to check out Maureen's Meals on Dr. Jeff's website. If you go to drjeffnewman.com/experience, you will get a link to the page where you can get all of our recipes.